authors. We welcome everyone to the town hall featuring Dr. Daniel Black and Stephen Barnes. These are two powerful men. And we have our host tonight is Shakir Rashaan. He's a national best-selling author. And we all have authors here. And that's one of the reasons why they're here. They have a lot of value to add. So I really wanted to, because they presented so well during the Cavalcade of Authors event 3 weeks ago, I really wanted to bring back Dr. Daniel Black and Stephen Barnes to really discuss some really tough things, given this social climate and leading up to the fact that Tuesday is a very important day, deciding factor of things in America, and race relations right now is all askew. So I wanted to get their take on it, and Shakir brought it to the table. So I'm going to turn it over to my brother in the pen, and I am looking forward to how all of this goes down.
Absolutely. First, I want to say, gentlemen, thank you for being a part of this with me. As far as that is, I would be remiss if I did not want to say, please, well wishes to my brother J.L. Woodson. He is currently dealing with some illnesses at this particular point. He couldn't be with us tonight, but he would have been co-hosting with me tonight with regard to this particular panel. I'd be remiss if I didn't say, get well wishes to him. That's for right. Starters, and then we can kind of move forward from there.
Yes, sir.
That being said, the reason behind why I wanted you two here, and actually there was a few others, but unfortunately that couldn't happen, was literally what's happening in the next 48 hours. First and foremost, that's probably the most important thing that we have to deal with in the immediate future at this point. So what I wanted to get from the two of you gentlemen was your thoughts on everything with regard to how you feel with regard to what's actually about to happen. I mean, we're in light of what we've just heard from yesterday's incident with Texas, with regard to the incident with the Biden campaign bus in Texas, and then of course earlier today with what's going on, what went on with just a simple march to the polls, and having law enforcement just lose their ever-loving mind. That's the only thing I can come up with at this point. What are your initial thoughts with regard to what we have to deal with come Tuesday?
Doctor, why don't you go first?
I was going to say I defer to the elder, but okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think I would just say two things initially. One of those is, I'm certainly hoping for Biden. I don't want there to be any confusion about that. I'm absolutely hoping that Biden wins. But I'm not hoping that Biden wins because I believe deeply in Biden. I'm hoping that Biden wins because I absolutely do not believe at all in Trump.
Understood, right? Sir.
So I want to say that first. The second thing I will say is, but the thing I feel like that we as Black people have to do, and that is stop hinging our freedom, stop hinging our hope, stop hinging our future, right, on what the larger American public, what the larger American populace does. I want us to really get to a place where, regardless of who's in the White House, we are still clear about how we proceed as a Black community.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Right? I voted, and I think everybody should vote. No issue there. I'm very, very, very clear. However, what I'm also clear about is that the totality of our future, that our very agency cannot be put into the hands of anybody in the White House.
I could not agree with that more. But I think that we can add something to that. I don't believe that our power, our agency, our happiness as individuals should be dependent upon anything outside of ourselves. That we have to be primarily responsible for the way we are interpreting reality, the way we are interacting with it. We can't control the outside world, but we can control the way we react to the outside world. So the first thing I would say is that it was absolutely inevitable. We've backed Trump into a corner. We've made it clear that if he gets out of the White House, we're going to be coming after him, and a lot of people are going to be trying to put him in jail. When you don't give your adversary a safe route to escape, Sun Tzu's The Art of War says, you always do that. We have not done that. I understand that. I'm not criticizing that, but it was inevitable that that everything and anything would be Trump at this point. So we have to be ready for that. I think that we also need to have confident, if you start with the confidence that you are responsible for your own happiness, then you can kind of be a little bit relaxed. Look back over history and ask yourself the question, have we as a species been at this point before? Countless times.
Absolutely.
Have demagogues, and dictators and would-be dictators risen up and tried to control us? Countless times.
Right.
I believe that humanity continues to move towards greater interconnection, greater safety, greater joy in the world. So the first thing that I would say to people who are feeling stressed out right now is that a fantastic way to control your stress is you simply take your smartphone, set it for either 1 to 3 hours, and every 1 to 3 hours you stop and you do 60 seconds of deep, slow, diaphragmatic belly breathing. Just every hour or every 3 hours. And that way what you're doing is the stress is there, but it isn't stress that hurts you. It's strain that hurts you. The difference between stress and strain is, from an engineering point of view, stress is pressure per unit area.
Agreed.
But strain is deformation per unit length. This is what hurts you. And if you can breathe, if your body is moving as if you are relaxed under stress, you're in the eye of the storm. The stress is there, but you're able to be a benefit to your family, your community. You're able to see the possibilities. This is one of the gifts that, let's say, the martial arts gives you. It's not that the guy hasn't pulled a knife on you. It's that you're calm enough to see what options you have. You're calm enough to see what you can do in that situation. The fact is that this is the time that the adults of the community need to stand together, and every single one of us who can manage our fear and not let it turn into a raging fire can then offer that strength to your communities, your families, your friends, to other people. And anger is nothing but fear, wearing a mask, wearing a Halloween mask. So if you can help people deal with their fear, you automatically diminish the anger. That means you can even do that for an enemy. You can do that for the people. You can do that for the Trumpers. They're terrified of demographic change. They're going through tribal extinction fear. And to the degree that we can help them calm that fear, we can turn enemies into neighbors. So be strong, come from strength. Be sure that you come from the position of, I'm going to survive. My family is going to survive. But once you're certain about that, you can afford to understand that the anger that you're seeing out there is just raving terror.
And I think that's the other thing that I was kind of looking at it from that perspective as well, which is part of where everything was just becoming such a strain in a lot of instances. I mean, I've got people who literally I've known for decades that literally switched up on me, and I'm still in a lot of instances, I'm still reeling from it with regard to that, because I'm like, for them to have had such a paradigm shift in the last 2 years, and now trying to understand their methodology to it all, and working through what that stress is looking like for me in terms of, okay, now how do I even manage this? How do I manage these relationships now? Just over someone who has been so polarizing over the last 4 or 5 years. So that was part of my. It in a lot of instances, it actually turned into an impromptu thing, because I really wasn't planning on thinking about it or talking about it in that regard. But I literally was absolutely devastated by it, because this is someone who I knew their family, I knew all of their kids, and I'm sitting here. We've had these discussions over the years, and some way, shape, or form, it managed to slip my radar. So now I'm looking at it and asking the two of you as well with regard to, is there a way? Because I mean, we don't make the mistake that Black folks are conservative. We know this. When it comes to certain issues that we are on, when it comes to certain issues that we care about, those types of things, we can be as conservative as any other base on this in this country. However, there's conservative, and then there's this that we're dealing with right now. So the question is, how do you separate the two, I guess? Can you separate the two based upon whom these people are now deciding wants to be in the executive branch?
See, I think, if I can respond to that, I think a couple of things. The first thing I think is, anybody in America, anybody Black in America now, who has very little sense of their own Black or their own African identity is in a very desperate place. See, and that desperation is leading Black people to make alliances with the devil. See, this very desperate place means many Black people are in a place now where, listen, they think either get on the team that seemingly is going to win, get on the team that's going to come out financially secure. Get on. I don't care if it's Trump. I don't care if it's the devil himself, just because that's the only option we have. See, unfortunately, too many of us don't know enough of our history. Too many of us, have gotten kind of sucked into and lured into, are drunk from the wine of the world, such that now the question for so many Black people is either you win, right, or you just absolutely positively get destroyed. And because of that position, because of that perception, many Black people are selling their soul, so to speak, hoping that they're going to be on a team of folks where they can at least financially benefit. There are these Black Republicans, even here in Atlanta, Black Republicans for Trump. And ideologically, it doesn't make any sense to me. But financially, I understand what they're trying to do. And that is they're trying to be aligned with what they think is going to be those who end up at the end of the day with the cash pot, right? So that they can get at least the drippings from it. The problem with that, of course, is all of us who know history here know that just aligning yourself with the cash pot doesn't mean you're going to get a dime. But even if they do, that's not worth the quality of Black life in America. That's not worth what it really is going to mean to separate yourself from Black people. And quite frankly, these same people who might let you get some of the droppings from their table, they'll turn around and kill you the next day. That's the history.
Agreed.
So,
Stephen, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is that your question seemed to be, how do you get along with people who are coming at this from such a different position? It feels like they're seeing a completely different world. They turn themselves into aliens. Okay. If that is the question, then that's a personal question. It's not a political question. It's a philosophical question. And I would say you love them. They don't have to think the way you think. The fact is that if it is true that anger flows from fear, then you're looking at people who are afraid. And money and the way their 401k might shake out is certainly part of it. But there are also people who are concerned about abortion rights. There are people concerned about immigration. There are people interested in a lot of different things. There are people who just have been victimized by what I consider to be the greatest con man in American history. They've simply swallowed the bait and they can't cough the hook back up. So there's a lot of that. And if you're dealing with these people, remember that on the other side of it, I think that all the polls suggest that we're going to have a good week in terms of the election. So after that, we're going to have to start working on healing this country, which means that we have to remember how we got here. So it's not going to be a matter of, okay, we've won, we can just let them have the same seats at the table and it's all going to be fine. Let's all hold hands and sing songs. But it is a matter of we've got to find a way to live together. So to the degree that you can hear them, when I talk to Trump voters, my interest is not in converting them, not in changing their minds, but in understanding where they're coming from. How do they see the world? Because if I make the assumption that they see the world the same way I do, then they're villains. They're villains, they're monsters. So I don't believe that that's the case. I believe that they're literally seeing the world differently. To the degree that I can see that, first of all, they stop becoming monsters and they become people. They become our brothers and sisters and neighbors and friends and sometimes former friends. But if you ever had to be at war with one of them, it is critical that you know your opponent, that you not project your image of what you think they are. A hunter who's after a wolf had better understand the nature of wolves. If you're hunting a tiger, you better understand the nature of tigers. Saying, I don't want to understand them. Why should I bother understanding them? Why is it always up to us to understand them? No, because you want to survive. That's why. Absolutely. Because from a position of a warrior, and a lot of my thinking about these things comes from my interest in the martial arts. Is the better you understand your enemy, the better the chance that you can keep from having to kill him or be killed by him. Or if you do have to fight him, the easier it is, or the more efficient and effective your actions become. So our ability to understand other people is going to be directly connected to our capacity to lead them. So even if you wanted to change their mind, your first step is to understand what the world looks like from their position and understand what has motivated them to make the decisions they've made. You cannot talk to somebody as if they're you. You can't talk to them as if they're motivated by the same things you're motivated by. Why did they make these decisions? Why are they doing this? And to the degree that you can do that without judging them, without thinking that they're either fools or knaves, and which can be hard, especially when they've made decisions where you're thinking to yourself, how could you do that? To the degree that you can step out of your own ego, out of your own fear, and kind of say, what am I seeing here? Just a scientist who's looking at a bacteria, not as it's bad, but literally this is a living thing that I have to deal with. How does its metabolism work? How does it interact with its environment? How do these people think and feel? If you can understand that, you can communicate with them. If you can communicate with them, you'll be seen as a human being instead of an enemy. Do that, they will drop some of their defenses and they'll tell you what they're really thinking and feeling. And like I said, we've got to live with these people after this is over. And I think that we're going to need to lead them by our example to a healthier place. If you can't do that, then you're just going to have to lead your family and neighbors, and that's fine too. But leadership is leadership. Leading by that example, not being motivated primarily by fear, is still, I think, the primary goal if you want to live a life of joy.
Okay. I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. I've got to figure out how that's going to look after Tuesday, and especially considering what I had to deal with over the last 48 hours. I don't know if I'm going to have the emotional capacity.
You start with yourself.
I realize that as well. I like I said, I have to look.
Exercise.
I have to look and see whether or not I have the capacity and the intelligence, the emotional intelligence.
You do.
To do so.
Start with your breathing. I can promise you, that you will calm you. There are other things you can do from there, but if you start with that, it's magic. You cannot think your way through this. Your body, your fight or flight response, your sympathetic nervous system is on fire. You've got to calm that fire, or your frontal lobes, your forebrain, your cognitive capacity will not and cannot kick in until you're out of that feeling of being in constant emergency. So this is where meditation, affirmation, prayer, breathing, exercise, sex, any number of different things that help you calm yourself can tie in there. So that you got to control yourself first. The outside world is going to be what it is. Take care of you.
I have to say, first of all, this is clearly going to be an amazing discussion. I'm happy to be here. And Brother Stephen, I absolutely honor and I respect you. Absolutely. I'm not sure that I'm aligned quite with everything you're saying politically, right? But I absolutely respect you. Some of, not all, but some of the paradigm you just outlined sounds a bit like the hope we've always had in white transformation, right? That if we love them enough, right? That if we really just sought to understand them, and that if we treated them kindly, they would come around the corner and they would learn those, who honor us, because they would see our humanity. His history has not borne that out, however, but his history did not bear out that our altruistic nature and that our rolling out the carpet of welcome for folks, made them honor Black folks. History not only did not bear that out, I think also it's dangerous for us in some instances to even seek that, right? For me, and I think that because there's a way in which the moral fiber of America is always seen as Black responsibility, right? Now, on one hand, I'm not troubled by that because I do think that we come from people who, in our very nature, are moral. But I also think that the very fabric of America is that it is immoral. I think the very fabric of this place is that it seeks the perpetuation of white supremacy as its number one idea and as its number one platform. I think that is absolutely America's commitment. Where you're right is, yes, we have to live here, but I don't know that we have to live here the same way we have been living here. And speaking of that, I'm not even sure that we ought to, because there are ways that I have faith in Black people's transformation. I have faith in Black people's moral character. I don't have that same faith in America's moral character.
Right. I think that, see, first of all, I'm not a terribly political person. I'm primarily philosophical. I think that that politics is how do we accomplish what we need to accomplish. But philosophy is what is true. You know, it is. So if the goal is to, you know, the Dalai Lama said the goal of life is to be happy. In order to be happy, you have to be, you know, survive. You have to be out of pain. So I say you start with absolutely the commitment to survive, and if necessary, to kill the person who is messing with you. Absolutely, that's where you start. Once you are absolutely certain that you will die to protect yourself and
Right.
die to protect your family, then you can ask questions like, how do we live together? Can we live together? Two warriors from opposite tribes can put their weapons down and sit and talk and say, is there some way we can prevent having to kill each other? Wouldn't it be nice? Okay, but what you don't do is come from the, I'm afraid of you, I'm gonna love you until you don't want to hurt me anymore. You don't do that. That is not in any way, shape, or form what I'm suggesting. I believe that human beings are just human beings. I do believe that since white people started this country, of course it's about white supremacy. And they're worried right now about, you know, survival because of demographic change. No question about it, they're terrified. So the question of how do we live together if you're not planning to go to war with somebody, if you're not planning for it to be, you know, war to the knife, we're just going to kill each other, then the question is, how do we live together? So it is first be prepared for war, but then see, you know, is it possible? You know, can I? But always remember that their fear of you is what's going to motivate their violence toward you. It is not your responsibility to heal them. It is not your responsibility to save them or to provide a moral guidance for this country any more than any other citizens. That is not on our backs. It is on our backs because we are dealing with survival. We have since our ancestors first landed here 400 years ago. And it is my commitment that I'm going to make America give up what it owes me. I ain't going nowhere. That in my ancestors, my mother, my father, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, we paid for our piece of this dream, and it's going to come. So it's, you know, it is definitely thinking that the world has gotten too small. There's hardly any place to hide anymore. So the question,
well, there is that.
Myself is, how do I protect myself? How do I protect my family? How can I make this country treat me? How can I make this country live up to its ideals?
Yeah, and I have to be honest. Yes, I don't want this. I don't think I want this dream. I don't want the American dream. I don't want this dream because this dream has always, some kind of way, the manifestation of this dream has always been at the cost of my flesh.
See, that's the manifestation of it. The dream itself is one of human equality, but the reality
the Black people's dream is of equality. American dream is not of everybody's being socially equal. That's not the American dream at all.
Once again, I think that that's the manifestation of it. They needed us for labor, and they did not care what it cost for them to tap into that. And we paid that price. We paid that price. If I look at human history, I think that the idea of how human beings can live together in equality has been a growing current around the world, not just Europe or America. I
absolutely agree with that, Mr.
That is what we want.
Definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I don't think it was America's dream, though.
I think that it was the dream, but the means to that dream included slaughter, genocide, slavery, sexism, classism, all sorts of interesting things.
That's right.
There is that.
Yeah, but that also means that the dream itself was problematic, because if the means to the dream would destroy other people, right, that means that the dream itself needs a kind of modification. See, the problem with the American dream is that it's a dream of excess. And in order to have excess, somebody always has to have more and somebody always has to have less. The American dream is a dream of excess. It's a dream of exploitation. It's the dream of having so much that you don't know what to do with it, right? Versus this notion of a dream of like everybody, right, eating and everybody having equal access to everything. That's not at all the American dream. I do think that is the human dream. And I think that is the dream that we should aspire to. But I don't think at all that that's what Americans want.
Well, see, okay, so we would disagree about that because I think that all living things seek to move away from pain and toward pleasure.
Now,
All living things.
I think that,
That
I
when
agree.
you think, the Sufis say that the beginning of sin is seeing other human beings as means rather than ends. They
Mhm.
saw, that is what human beings do when they fall away from their highest selves, that the aspiration and the implementation have to be kind of separated. I would totally embrace and celebrate your thoughts of how should the dream change, not how do we get to the dream, because we'd probably agree on a lot of that without any problem at all.
Absolutely.
Right.
If you feel that the basic dream should shift, then you should definitely help us to understand the ways in which the dream is wrong.
Yeah.
I think that the dream is just that dream of, can I live as free as possible? Can I raise my children, love my children, teach them my values? Will I be able to live a long, happy life and fulfill my goal? I think that is the human dream.
And that's perfectly understandable
I
as
agree with that.
well.
I agree with that. I just
I
don't think
think
that's the American dream, but I do agree
think
that's the
that's
human dream.
yeah, we're gonna probably have to kind of, I won't necessarily say we have to leave it, so to speak, but I think it's just it segs into a whole other idea in my head with regard to, okay, now we November 4. We're forward toward January in particular. And now it's like, okay, so now what do we do? And
Leave it there.
both of your points of view are valid. I have no argument saying that I agree on one end, I other. Is there a way to merge that to make it look as a comprehensive situation, I guess, in that regard? Because I mean, you're not gonna get where I'm not gonna get where Dr. Black wants to be, and I'm not gonna get where Stephen wants to be. Is there somewhere in the middle where there's a bit of a compromise where this can still work? I guess that's my question to you, Jim.
Let's let the good doctor address that first.
And so,
Absolutely.
And I'm happy to wait. I'm happy to speak, or I'm happy to wait. I don't really think that what Stephen and I are saying, it's certainly not polarized. It's certainly not polarized.
No, absolutely not.
What is true is he's saying philosophically and fundamentally, there's something all human beings desire. And I agree with that completely.
Mhm.
All human beings want basic needs. All human beings want to be free, et cetera, et cetera. I absolutely agree with that.
Okay.
I absolutely agree with that. I do not think that's the American dream. Right. That's where I find it, because even when this country was being founded, this country was not founded on the notion that every human being should be and ought to be free and equal in America. This was not founded on that. This was founded on the notion that white folks ought to be, right? Because in fact, when they were writing that, when they were really literally writing that, we were held as enslaved individuals. So the notion that they were talking about me is simply absolutely not true. It's just not, it's simply not true, right? It cannot possibly be true. However, they made it sound like a humanistic dream. You know, we purport these truths to be evident that all men are created equal, right?
Mhm.
Well, the trick is, who do you call human, right?
Yeah, because unfortunately, to your point, Dr. Black, we already know that the Constitution was not written in that regard when it came. Now, whether or not they wanted to try and make amendments to that same Constitution as things began to move forward, that's a whole other argument for a whole other day.
Sure.
However,
but really it's not. And here's why. From the time of the Constitution till now, both the government, the criminal justice system, this social system, right, from Jim Crow, et cetera, it has still done everything conceivable to keep Black people out of, number one, the full recognition of humanity, and number two, sharing in the full spoils of it in America.
Agree.
Right? So where I do agree with Stephen is that that's my dream, for all human beings to be able to be free, to live equitably, right? To be able to eat, to have happiness. Absolutely. I do not think that is America's commitment, nor do I think that's America's dream for me. I don't think that.
To your point, sir.
If you were to ask me, what would I say? I would say that you start by working backwards from what the goal is. That the goal is this dream of freedom and equality and all of us being able to rise to our greatest levels. Then I would make the assumption that anything that is separate from that is indicative of emergent qualities from within what we are as human beings. In other words,
Mhm.
I would not look at the problems in a society as being separate from the problems we have as individuals. If you look, those people say, oh, those politicians are corrupt, and they'll have these arguments on Facebook or something like this, where it's obvious that it is horribly difficult to get 4 people to agree on anything.
Right.
Okay. And so if you're wondering why our politicians are the way they are, look at any conversation and you'll see what the difficulty is. But more importantly than that, and this is just from my own point of view, I would say that
Mhm.
you look at the 3 different major aspects of human life: our financial existence, our physical existence, and our relationships, both to ourselves and to our significant others.
Agreed.
How many people do you run across who have perfected all 3 of those? Who have,
Very many.
Olympic bodies, millionaires doing something they love doing, and married to their soulmates? And most of that, you can look at that, and part of that is what's going on outside of us, but some of that has to do with the degree to which we lie to ourselves. We don't keep our promises to ourselves. We distort. We don't function as individuals at our highest state. As soon as you get into a marriage, you got 2 individuals who don't function at their highest state, multiplying each other's problems. Add a few more people, and you got a neighborhood. Add more people, you got a nation. If I work backwards from there, then I can say, let's start removing the things that stop us if we operate under the assumption this is what people want, and that what we see when you don't get that are reflections of the fear, the lies, the greed, the things that come into us when we're not operating according to our highest nature. But then you have the people who are operating according to their highest nature, and they become victims. They're the people that say, well, let's just love everybody. No. You start with the absolute commitment that you have the right to survive. 100%. Anybody who messes with that, it is, you have the right to rip their throat out with your teeth. Okay. That however hard you would fight to defend your child, that's how hard you should be willing to fight to defend your dream, your life, your heart. You start from there. And then you ask, what is it that stops me from being all I can be? What is it that stops me and my wife from being the best we can be? What is it that stops my neighborhood? What is it that stops my state, my city? And then by the time you get to the state, you see these individual human flaws multiplied across millions of people, adding the tribal nonsense that has just devastated humanity forever. My team, my side, my race, my club, my political orientation, my state, my school is better than yours. It's tied into that childish nonsense of my dog is better than your dog, my mommy is the prettiest, and my daddy's the strongest.
Fair.
People play that garbage, and Black people have been at the effect of it. And what I am hoping for is that they will not be so poisoned by it that they accept it. We don't have to be the same as the people who hurt us. We don't have to accept their values in any way, shape, or form. We can ask the question, what is it to be a whole, healthy human being? Autonomous. What is it to be a wild human being in some ways? I mean, dogs are like domesticated wolves. The first thing that slavery did was it tried to domesticate us, to take away our names, our culture, our religion, our history, our mythology, our agency, our capacity to protect our families. That's turning us into chihuahuas. Once you start remembering that you're actually a wolf, now you can decide to run with a pack, but you're not dependent on the pack. And I feel that the dream of America is very different from the implementation of that dream. As I said before, that implementation was as flawed as anything anyone could possibly have. But the dream, which is, I think, the dream of humanity, is strong. And it exists. You can find that dream all over the world. And I believe that it is up to each and every one of us to bring that to life in our own lives, then give that to our families, and then stand up for our communities.
Okay. Dr. Black, your thoughts on that?
Yes, sir. I do not believe that the dream of America is the dream of humanity. I don't think that. I absolutely do not think that. I do not believe that most Americans dream of my life being as prosperous as their own lives. I do
because,
not.
because they believe in a zero-sum game. They
Okay,
believe,
okay, no problem. For whatever the reason.
you know, see, they will do the same thing. If there were no black people here, white people would be tearing each other to shreds over the same crap, over whose religion is this.
I think you're right.
And if there was nothing but black people here, we'd be tearing each other to shreds over similar things.
There is that.
Now, I'm not sure I believe that.
I understand.
I'm not sure I believe, but because there was a time, right? In fact, there were centuries when black people, of course, as both of you great gentlemen know, there was a time when black people who had been maligned, who had been abused, who had been molested, who had been mistreated, still sought to coexist with and sought to love and sought to honor white people. But white people didn't want it.
Yes.
And what I'm saying is white people still don't want it. But the truth we have, the very painful truth that we have to admit to ourselves is that white people really don't want to coexist with you as equals. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't want our own equality, no problem. But I do not believe that fundamentally most white, there are certainly exceptions, let me be clear, but I do not fundamentally believe that most white people dream of my life looking as prosperous as their own lives. I don't believe that. What I don't believe
that human beings look at other human beings and dream of other human beings being as prosperous as them. I think that the natural tendency that human beings have that we need to work against is, hierarchicalism. Believing that if you get more, I get less is a pretty constant thing, and you see it operating all over the world in different ways.
This is true.
My belief, everything I say comes from the belief that human beings are basically equal. That's where everything I'm saying comes from. So if you don't come from that position, what I'm saying will sound like Martian. And I understand that, and I honor that. But everything I'm saying does come from that. If that is true, to the degree that that is true, everything is going to work. Everything's going to work out, even if you and I get killed. Death comes to everybody. It's not about us. It's about our children, our grandchildren. It's about future moving forward.
Yes, okay. But at some point, I want. Yes, sir. Let me be clear that I really honor what you're saying. But again, I'm not sure I quite agree, but I'm hearing you, right? But because
you could be wrong.
That's right. That's what makes it.
There is that to consider.
Also, the problem is the notion that we might get killed, which is true. The problem is we continue to be the ones who steady are getting killed. See, somewhere in this, the notion that we concede our own death as Black people in exchange for seemingly this ideal. Part of the problem is that we're doing too much of the conceding of our own lives, whereas other folks are not conceding their own lives too for seemingly, right? Now, let's be clear. There are white people who've been killed in civil rights movement, blah, blah, blah. We know that. We got all of that, right?
Agree.
However, in terms of the larger numbers, right, and in terms of the vast majority, right, of people who've had to sacrifice themselves and their lives, right, some kind of way, our own sacrifice and our own life force is always at the center of what's going to have to be paid, right, for this thing. And for me, not only is that problematic, but I'm also at a place now, and I haven't always been here, but I have grown to a place where I certainly believe that all human beings deserve the same thing. So let me be clear that I definitely believe that. But also, I'm not sure I believe that all human beings have necessarily the same thrust. I think that we as human beings, we want to believe that because it just makes sense, because all human beings seemingly ought to, seemingly at base are the same, right? And there is some truth to that, I think. I think all of us need water, all of us want joy, all of us want futures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Absolutely, for sure. However, I think the American project, and not global, I think the American project is a particular kind of project that is working, that was built for a particular reason and is working for that reason. Like Ava DuVernay said something a while back that really, really helped me with this. And she was talking about the criminal justice system and how folks are talking about the criminal justice system is broken. And she said, no, it's actually it's working perfectly. The problem is those of us against whom it's working, we're calling it broken because we're suffering from it, but it's not broken in terms of its aim.
Understood. Allow me to draw a line of clarification.
Okay.
A martyr says, I will die for my cause. Okay. A warrior says, I'm ready to die and I'm ready to take you with me. There's a difference.
There is a difference.
It's not that I'm saying I will lay down my life. It's I will lay down my life killing you.
Yeah, and I'm saying I don't want to do either of them. I don't have any more commitment to the transformation of white folks of America. I want us to discontinue that commitment, because some kind of way that commitment historically always ends in our death.
Right. Yeah, I guess
true.
my sense is that's why I'm saying that I would love for you to write an essay laying out exactly your vision of what the next 100 years would be. How do we?
Funny this is, Stephen. I have an essay collection that's at the publisher right now.
Fantastic. Okay. I have, you and I have a different view of what human beings are at that core level, because I don't think Americans or white people or anybody else is any different from, just worms. That there is a continuous thread of what it is that human beings are that goes all the way back to the simplest life forms. I don't see any differences. I just see greater levels of complexity and emergent behaviors. So I see what is going on right now as a hideous burp that we were on the negative side of. I want to protect my children from that. I want to protect my people from that. But I also have a sense of what the future can be. And I always have. That doesn't make me right. It means I'm willing to die on this perspective of what it is. I mean, no matter what I want, I can say all I want to, but I don't want to have to die about this. But the fact is that I don't get to live forever. So what I do get to do is to decide how I want to spend my life. And I think that, from my position, it is defending the point of view that I find closest, that explains the world the best to me, just as your point of view explains the world the best to you. And that the best thing we can do is have respectful conversation about this.
I agree.
Find the areas in which our points of view overlap, because where our points of view overlap, we can work side by side, go in the same direction. And then at night, you'll go and you'll do your thing, I'll do mine. But I'll know that you're a good man with good intentions who sees that, there are two core questions of all philosophy. Who am I and what is true? In other words, what is it to be human? And what is the structure, the ethical structure of the universe? What is the world? And we're going to have different perspectives on that. And those different perspectives will lead to different outcomes and different actions. So I don't try to convince other people of my position. I just explain what my position is. This is who I am. This is how I see it. And other than that, I wish everyone a life of joy and contribution and growth and healing. And if you mess with my family, I will kill you.
And I think we can all agree to that, as a overarching thing, moving forward at this point. I don't think there's going to be anybody that can really dispute that. I don't believe. I've got someone in the chat that was asking about the essay collection, Dr. Black. What exactly do you have in mind with that?
Oh yeah, it's not out yet. I just finished it, so it's going to be titled Black on Black.
Fair enough.
Yes, it's not out yet, but it's coming.
Black on Black. I like that. I like that.
Absolutely.
I have a course that I put together that has to do with the attitudes of, if you talk to high level warriors around the world, you'll find many of them to be very loving people, because they understand exactly what killing is, what death is, what war is. So they will do whatever they can to stop that. But they can often sue for peace in ways that pacifists cannot, because pacifists are often afraid of conflict. Whereas the warrior is just trying to preserve life because he's committed himself to that particular path. The tools that can help a person to do that, like the tool of the breathing that I gave you at the very beginning, to be able to stay calm in the middle of conflict, are the kinds of things that I think that we should be sharing with each other. There are writers, artists have tools for self-expression. Healers have tools, teachers have tools. So when we have these kinds of confabulations, we should be sharing these things. The one thing I would type into the thing, the URL for the course, it's called the Warrior's Journey. And so it's www.realwarriorsjourney.com. And I just believe, I believe in us as a species. I believe in us as a people. And frankly, I believe in our country, despite the fact that our country has generally not believed in me. Because there is the ideal to me, and that thing that I said, talk about the implementation. And I think that most of the things that we call evil arise from fear. That frightened people do horrible, horrible things to each other. Horrible things. Unless we actually had some of our natural tendency to want to kill them back drilled out of us. You know, the more aggressive, most aggressive of us didn't get to reproduce. They got killed, they got tortured, they got maimed, they got, you know, brainwashed. So bringing that energy back into the equation is part of what I think is necessary right now. Bring that male energy, that protective energy, that I'm the greatest energy, that I will kill you if you mess with my family energy that every animal has, that they actually programmed out of us, but is still part of our genetic heritage. Bring that back, and two warriors can sit down and talk about peace. You know, wolves can't talk about peace with sheep, and that's as long as they're seeing us that way or as chaotic, we have to be capable of looking at them in the eye and saying, do you want your family to live? I want my family to live. How do we work this out?
Absolutely. That being on that vein, the way that I'm looking at it from that particular vein is just really the idea of being able to find that space to perpetuate that male energy that you're referring to, Stephen. The question that's in my head at this point, I'm looking at something. I won't necessarily say it's a little lighter per se, but we'll kind of move forward at that point because we've gotten everything that we can probably get out of this particular subject, which, you know, again, that's we'll be at it all night when it comes to that. So, so that being said, I want to pivot to a few of the questions that some of my tribe had actually decided they wanted to kind of bring out as well. Was brought out from one of my sisters in the pen. She asked, with regard to you two gentlemen, what is your love language? She says, this world is cruel. Recent events have reminded us that there seems to be an endless open season on our kings. What can we say or do to remind you that you are loved and appreciated for all that you do? How can we best love you?
Beautiful question. Dr. Black, would you like to take the first?
I think I'll defer to you and then I'll follow up.
Okay. Well, I can talk about it in my own life. You know, I'm married to my soulmate, the beautiful and brilliant Tananarive Dew. She blows me away in every way. And I let her know from the first time that I met her and realized that I was in love with her, which took about 3 days, that I was prepared. Nice. I was prepared to give her my life. I was prepared to do whatever. You know, you want to hear the story of exactly how I let her know what I was? It's like we met at a science fiction fantasy conference for black science fiction writers. Octavia Butler was there, Chip Delaney, other people were there. And I'd seen her for 3 days. And I thought she was cute. I thought she was smart. But it wasn't until she got up on stage and really talked about how she got Stephen King to give her a cover blurb on her book that I realized this woman is brilliant, because her tactic was amazing. And as soon as I said brilliant, I suddenly realized, oh my God, it's like I felt this energy shoot up my spine. And it was like, oh, Steve, you're in love and you're in trouble, because we're all leaving the conference the next day. And so I said, I've got to get, she lived in Florida, I lived in Washington State. I had to get her attention. I had to get her attention fast. We interacted, but not that much. So I looked around, she came down off the stage and she was signing autographs. I looked over at the woman sitting next to me and she had a baby on her lap. And I looked at the woman and I said, excuse me, could I borrow your baby? And she said, what? I said, she'd seen me talking to her. I said, no, I don't want to take the baby out of the room. I just really love kids. I love to play with your baby. She said, okay. So I took the baby and I got down on the floor in front of Tananarive and all these people signing autographs. And I started playing with the baby on the floor in front of her. I knew that there was no way a Black professional woman in her early 30s could look at an available Black man who loves children without her hindbrain going, ding, 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 ding. I have got to investigate this. But by the next day, we were sitting in the airport in Atlanta, holding hands, our foreheads leaning against each other, talking about how we could build an empire together. The fact is that I I am totally open with her about the fact that I adore her and I love her, that I support her. What can I do to make your life better? And she does the same thing for me. And our relationship is very emotional, it's very physical, it's very intellectual. And we are raising children. She helped me raise my daughter and get my daughter through college. No, how could she possibly have told me she loves me in any way more than helping me raise my child? And now we have a son that we're raising together. And we both understand that the child is more important than us. We live because our values are such that we can invest ourselves totally in the things that we're doing. And it's a way of saying, I love you. When she takes care of my son, she's saying she loves me. It's the relationship. A relationship isn't two people looking at each other. It's two people looking in the same direction. I can love somebody. I could be passionately sexually attracted to them. And that relationship ain't going nowhere because we're not going in the same direction. We can't walk together. We can't run together. We can't climb together. That a relationship is two people finding each other such that we can walk through life together and actually help each other. That I can see her fear. I can see her hopes and her dreams. And I can tell her, I am willing to do whatever it takes, whatever I have to make sure that you never regret having chosen me, ever regret having chosen me. I'm not perfect, but I'm hers.
Dr. Black.
First of all, that's a beautiful, beautiful story. And I love Tanana Reeve do.
She's amazing.
She is amazing.
Yeah.
She is amazing. She's amazing. I rubbed shoulders with her some when she was at Spelman.
Yeah.
I've been at Clark Atlanta for almost 30 years now.
Oh, she loved working at Clark Atlanta.
Yeah. Awesome place. I think my answer might be a little different. I think the way we love each other these days, right, is by making certain decisions, right, about how we share each other's space, how we share each other's life force. What I mean specifically about that is, I think we how might I say this? I think we go out of our way to enjoy people and to present and to enjoy the love people present to us versus trying to figure out how to get the love from people we want. Meaning,
I see.
I think pressing ourselves to mature so that whatever kind of love a person brings before you is the kind we take. And we see that as a beautiful act, right? And we see that as an act of someone who's really trying to adore you. That may not be the way I might prefer love. It may not even be the way I want it. But I think learning to take it from people, the way people have it to give, I think allows love to flow easily in any and every direction all the time. I feel like in so many of us, and I have